to the great community of Clairton, their Honorable Mayor Rich Lattanzi right now. You can see this interview stream live by going to kdkradio.com and clicking on KDK Watch. Mayor, highly disappointed. I think if and when, and I think it's more when U.S. Steel, if this deal doesn't get done, leaves the Mon Valley, there's going to be a lot of people that should be held accountable, and I am going to be one to make sure they get called out. You have to be extremely disappointed with this news. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you doing today? Yes, this is true. I am very much disappointed and concerned. So much time's being wasted. It's actually time to start to rebuild. And as far as the president, I'm convinced that President Biden, he made a political decision, quite possibly that Nippon isn't one of the major contributors like USW and the Cleveland Cliffs. So disappointing. And we have several foreign companies already that purchase land, companies, businesses, etc. in our country. Therefore, again, I say this is no security issue. Biden surely does not have the backs or the interest of the majority of the boots on the ground, steelworkers, local towns like myself, contractors, vendors, stockholders, and our future generation.
So what happens to the great community of Clairton, who really was baptized in the steel industry over 100 years ago, if and when U.S. Steel within a handful of years says we're leaving? What happens?
Well, like I said, I told you once before, Rob, U.S. Steel is about 30% of our tax base. They're such a great community partner, and they're the identity of Clairton. The city of Clairton was formed around the Clairton Steel Mills in the late 1800s, so our town owes them a lot of gratitude, and we would lose our identity, we would lose our tax base, and the city of Clairton would be, like sort of when Duquesne Mill went down, the town of Duquesne sort of like went, to be a boom town, and there was nothing happening, and it takes so long to rebuild.
The mayor of Clairton, Rich Lattanzi, joining me this morning. The thing that really frustrates me is the fact that Nippon Steel really went above and beyond. I mean, and if they were to walk away now and maybe lean in on a company in India and Mexico, which they have alluded to and the trades have alluded to, I wouldn't blame them a bit. I mean, they even said, look, we'll give you the keys to the kingdom. You have 10 years. You can veto anything we do. If we start, stepping back as far as production, you can say, no, you're not. I mean, what else could they have been wanting to get? This literally, to me, there was nothing more than a political reason why the president did what he did. And here's a man, again, our president, I respect that, who pretty much has been non-existent for months, basically had to get out of the presidential race because of questions to his cognitive skills. He's been pardoning all these people, but now all of a sudden he makes a crucial decision like this that could shutter thousands of working class jobs and, more importantly, take away our ability in this country to make big steel. It absolutely makes no sense. It's mind-boggling, Mayor.
Well, I had some experience of being in basic labor agreements and being the mayor of the city of Clairton. We have some locals that, work for the city. So I was in some bargaining agreements, and there's always some give and take. I was fortunate to be on the negotiations with Nippon and the USW, and there was no give and take. I was there for 3 days, and I said Nippon give and repeatedly give, and the demands got higher and higher. And I said to myself, I don't know what else they could give. They only came down to a few items, but I'm totally convinced from day one, when it all started, that there was not going to be a deal. I think maybe we were there just to be humored, and they could have gave the planet away or their country to us, and it still wouldn't have been a deal. I'm afraid that, with the Cleveland Cliffs on the backside and maybe Dave McCall having some type of interest with them or a promise to them, or that, they're from this country, or just that there's been support on the higher levels politically from these groups of the USW, that numbers talk, and these people, there's I guess an allegiance that, you support me, I support you. And I see that, China's 60% of the global market. U.S. Steel is about 6%. I'm thinking Nippon comes in there, throw some money in, and rebuild the Mon Valley. Everything looks brighter for us. I can help rebuild my town. Just what a great future. And a couple of days into the new year, they hear this announcement, and I'm thinking to myself, I've been a Democrat my whole life. This was a chance for Biden to go out of office with some dignity to say, hey, I did something for the greater America. And that didn't happen, and I'm so disappointed.
Listen, I'm going to tell you a quick story that has to do with party lines. Many years ago, a dear friend of mine, Congressman Gene Atkinson, who was a Democrat, who was a Beaver County commissioner, was a dear friend of mine. And he ended up switching parties, and he jumped ship and went with the Republican Party because of being asked by then, of course, running, soon to become later, the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan. And I asked him, I said, so you got to tell me, and this was decades later, up until just maybe a few years ago, I never knew why. And I ran into him one day on Franklin Avenue in Aliquippa, and he has since passed. But I said, I got to ask you, Gene, why did you do it? He said, because the Reagan administration promised me that they would keep the mill in Aliquippa. So all of these promises, we keep hurting people. 40 plus years later, we're doing it again for political purposes. I don't know what future president to be, again, President Donald Trump is going to do. But everybody's got to quit thinking politics, and they got to think about feeding working class families, something you did for 30 years as a card-carrying member of the USW. And I just don't think that they realize they're putting people in a bad position, Mayor, and they are playing us like pawns. And to me, that's utterly disgusting.
I totally agree with you. Like I said, the repercussions here, we're going to see them soon. And it's unfortunate that, President Trump, President-elect Trump, is coming into office, and this is going to be one of the asks from the steel workers and the people that supported him to say, hey, can you help us out? Biden wasn't able to help us. I'm not so sure what direction he's going, but this is a critical point in time, especially for the Mon Valley. We've been kicked in the teeth so often. We helped out with the wars back in the day, and since then we've been forgotten. But now we got to reach out to the Trump administration and say, hey, you got to listen to the boots on the ground working people, the small communities like Clairton and Braddock and West Mifflin, and some of these people there that we're dying cities. I mean, we got so much blight. We need projects done. We need the infusion of tax dollars. We need your help. And, by the grace of God, we're just hoping that somebody's going to have the utter guts to step forward and say, yeah, I could help you guys out. Even if you didn't support me or wasn't my main contributor, I'm going to help them just for mankind. I will help you.
Couple more things. Rich Lattanzi, Mayor of Clairton, and I always appreciate having him, and I've only got to recently know him, but the thing that I have really taken from all of these gentlemen, Chris Kelly of West Mifflin, Marcus Adams of East Pittsburgh, and Mayor Cletus Lee of Braddock, they don't hold back, and they really go to work. And it's not about who they are a member of as far as either the Democratic or Republican Party. It's about serving their constituents. So I have to ask you, recent comments, Senator Fetterman staying in line with the president and saying this is the union speaking. And I think it's just one person, McCall, speaking, because everybody I know personally who's a member of the USW really wanted this. Kim Ward says the governor hasn't done enough. Your thoughts about those two individuals and about every politician who hasn't said anything or good or bad about this story. This is the biggest story right now. We should all be focusing on it. Just your thoughts on that. Go ahead, Mayor.
Well, just to be honest there, I'm a mayor and I have election year coming up this year, and I got to sit back sometime and say, where's most of my votes come from? So you got the governor and you got Fetterman, and they got to be thinking about, okay, where I'm at today, how I got here, who was my supporters, who did most of my funding. So I got to look out for these people. And I just think that at the lower level, the boots on the ground, people that are, for this deal, the steel workers, the young guys that need a future, people like myself as mayor, I just think that we're just second to the top brass.
All right, before I let you go, final question. Are you worried right now, sir?
I'm going to use the word concern. I mean, I worry most of my life about other things. I'm going to say concern. If something doesn't happen soon, the mill's are already sort of in deplorable condition. We need a plan, and we need to start rebuilding. And every day that this doesn't happen is another day that we're going to be further down the road. So very concerned.
Listen, you're an honorable man, and if I lived in Clairton, you'd have my vote. But one thing I want you to know, even though this story is going to go into the next administration, I'm here if I can help in any way. If I can be a sounding board, just tell me where and when, and I'll continue to pray for everybody involved. Because, look, I don't care what anyone says. If we don't stop this madness soon of losing these type of jobs in America, our children and grandchildren will never have a chance to enjoy what this country was built on. And I'm talking about great union labor like the USW. Thank you, sir. Try to have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll talk again, okay?
Thank you, Rob. Keep up the good work.